The forest world is waking, 1,000 leaves are beginning to gleam. Later on, as I rise, it shows through the trees and lights the dark gray rock, and something in the mind and brings the quiet day. And tomorrow, the light has a thought, forgotten comes again, and with it ever, and with it
In 1861, George Hughes sailed in a rowboat from the Pearl River, China, across the Pacific Ocean to San Francisco. He sailed alone. The photograph of him in a museum disappeared, but in the mind, he is intense, vivid, alive. What is this fact but another fact in a world of facts? Another truth in a vast network of truths. It is a red maple leaf flaming out at the end of its life, revealing an incredibly rich and complex network of branching veins. We live in such a network. The world is opaque, translucent, or suddenly lucid, vibrant. The air is alive and hums then. Speech is too slow to the mind, and the mind's speech is so quick it breaks the sound barrier and shatters glass.
When the distance between subject and verb is larger than a tongue's measurement, I strike myself with a belt of a wrong tense. Where it hits a band of skin blanches, white like a hen. No surprise that I'm more verb than subject. No surprise that time, like an automobile, leads down the congealed mountainsides of me. With age, it's harder to make out good deeds which rinse clear after several lathers. All I know is when I'm virtuous, I dare not disturb the wiles of the underworld. My present tenses are just basins where endings approach room temperature. inside the marrow of song, a spirit shape tucked in my ear before snow, streams an old-time town, a general store selling cornmeal and used dentures. What time zone is this? Home of sad marvels, pluck my memory out. I am just immigrant enough to feel shame for my overseas kin, who live inside gaming, and still their warriors are listless. Ruling, you cannot speak. Her brim mind, she went hysterically blind. So they implanted an oculus, and she said, I see light sharpening to contours afield, marigolds, golden poppies. I see their names, but why do I smell smoke? In the engine, the way memory will just hit. I unvalve the escape hatch. A gentle hiss, breathing in a remote, dark planet. Suck in. Back.
Soft, that tear of water which signals dreaming's low boiling point. I draw down my eyelids, turn my head. Here the camera fuzzes. What remains out of focus is the foreground, the waking forms. Patterns arise in the sediment. When the eyes adjust, you're met with the stutter of faces, seasoned. In Anhui, my birth province, my unconscious picks up the interference of my relatives' dream language, of images that abide in them. I'm closest to their blood when my memories dream of theirs, and vice versa, ad libitum. These relatives here can't afford self-pity. If they've jotted down lines of verse, I'll never see them. We carry some of the same nerves in the body, but not a shared sense of how to exhaust history in ourselves. Through time's clotted membrane, mutual recognition presents complications. Offerings of money and measurable affection still the shared tongue. And how can I be trustworthy with this mouth, its tin roof of American English? To aunts and cousins who speak at me with speed, I lend an ear. I can't figure out the source, just the base sentiment. I distance them at Wuhu train station, where their faces stay. Days later, I find sutures of words, dampening against the page.
It wasn't.
The knob of sun.
Or grainy currents
Crossing the eye.
that invites thought.
That you finally arrived.
At the clearest understanding,
This very instant on the Huangpu River.
where the mind is serrated,
Dragging its way.
all this thinking
Thousands upon thousands along the river and inland.
and still meaning is heavier.
Than the bodies we yoke it to.
Surely, for this reason,
Death must,
announce itself
again and again,
in such sour language
so we may live closer
to the senses
the sweat of the unsayable.
moments when we feel history
Pulling from behind.
the eyes,
The mouth.
the hooked,
But the remainder
of this life
is still millions of kilometers away.
from being born.
To pull the metal splinter from my palm. My father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd removed the iron silver I thought I'd die from. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still, a well of dark water, a prayer. And I recall his hands to measures of tenderness he laid against my face. The flames of discipline he raised above my head. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's pond, a silver tear, a tiny flame. Had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here, where I bend over my wife's right hand. Look how I shave her thumbnail down, so carefully she feels no pain. Watch as I lift the splinter out. I was 7 when my father took my hand like this, and I did not hold that shard between my fingers and think, metal that will bury me, christen it little assassin, or going deep for my heart. And I did not lift up my wound and cry, death visited here. I did what a child does when he's given something to keep. I kissed my father.
Dear grandmother, today I found a certificate of marriage and a translation of it by the President Translation Service. The date is July 26, 1939. Now I know your name, Miss Zhang Ji Yin. I also know you were 27 and grandfather 26. I wonder if this was considered strange at the time, your being older than him. I now know you were born on April 29, 1913. Seeing this date makes me cry. The tears are long and rusted. I've tried to tie them together into a long string toward your country. The farthest I've ever made it was Kansas. The tornadoes always break my tears. Dear grandmother, I now know you were born in Qingyuan-Xian, Hebei province. I Google Hebei and see it is in the north of China, where all the good doughy food mother used to make comes from, the baozi, jiaozi, and shaobing. I can see how close you were to Beijing and Mongolia. I learned that you were born 1 year after the Qing dynasty collapsed. I learned that you lived amid civil war. I wonder if this is why you took your children and left for Taiwan. I can't find your town, Qingyuan-Xian, on Google because it's probably spelled another way. After more searching, I figure out it is likely Jingwan-Xian, but I still can't locate it on the map of Hebei, which I figure out is also Hebei province. The certificate says you're united in matrimony at Chongqing City, Sichuan province. Google says there are 30 million people there. I try to imagine 30 million people who look like me. In that moment, grief freezes. The certificate says you were introduced to each other by Mr. Zhang Kan Chen and Mrs. Zhou Ji Ying. I wonder who these people were. I wonder if yours was an arranged marriage or if you loved each other, or both. I wonder what love looked like in China in 1939. The certificate says, these two parties are now united forever in harmony on this auspicious day in taking an oath of mutual fidelity throughout their lives. What happened afterwards, I don't know. I do know that when I met you, the one time I met you, you were no longer together and hadn't been in a long time. But Mother never talked about that. Mother only ever bitterly talked about how you favored all of your sons. The one time I met your former spouse, my grandfather, was when Mother brought me to the arcade to meet him. I played Miss Pac-Man the whole time, while they stood near the door and talked. Their mouths moved, but I couldn't hear anything. All I remember is the sound of the yellow mouth eating white pellets. I often think about what the poet Mary Jo Bang wrote about her dead son. What is elegy but the attempt to rebreathe life into what the gone once was before he grew to enormity? That is what Mother feels like, an enormity. My history feels even larger, the size of atmosphere. An elegy reflects on the loss of a loved one. What form can express the loss of something you never knew but knew existed? Land you never knew, people. Can one experience such a loss? The last definition of absence is the non-existence or lack of. See how the of hangs there like someone about to jump off a balcony? I want to believe in the origin story. I want to believe we all desire to know how we came to be, who we came from. I want to know why my fingers are so long, why my mouth naturally frowns, why my back has chronic pain, why I have freckles all over my nose, why my mind is so restless. But what if, during her own migration, my mother's memories migrated too and became exiled from their origins? What if both my origin and memory can never be pinned down? Grandmother, in the list of people present during your marriage, there are 2 matchmakers, 3 parents, and a witness. Where was the 4th parent? I now know the names of 3 of my ancestors, Jin, Xuan, San, Zhang, Yin, Chen, Pi, Pao, Zhuan. I also have a photocopy of the original marriage certificate in Chinese. I now know your names in Chinese characters, though I can't read them well. My mother had a photocopy of each of these documents, and then she made another copy of the copies. So many copies to forget her past. If I throw them away, does that mean I was never born? In some ways, being born Chinese in America means not being born at all. Maybe all of our memories are tied to the memories of others. Maybe my memories are tied to Mother's memories, and Mother's memories are like objects in a mirror. I see them, but I can't ever reach them. When Mother died, my exile detached from her exile, and that gap filled with longing. But with these new papers, there's now a new wind, a Mongolian wind from the north, one I have never smelled before. A new feeling that I, too, come from something, from some people, from somewhere.
A, B, C. A, B, C. A, B, C.
She doesn't know what comes after. So we begin again.
A, B, C. A, B, C. A, B, C.
But I can see the 4th letter, a strand of black hair unraveled. Even now the nail salon will not leave her. Isopropyl acetate, ethyl acetate, chloride, sodium lauryl, sulfate and sweat fuming through a pink I love NY t-shirt.
A, B, C. A, B, C. A. The pencil snaps.
The bee bursting its belly as dark dust blow through a blue-lined sky. Don't move, she says, as she picks a wing bone of graphite from the yellow carcass, slides it back between my fingers. Again and again. I see it, the strand of hair lifting from her face, how it fell onto the page and lived with no sound, like a
A, pronoun.
My belonging to me.
How should I define the limits of my concern, the boundary between mine and not mine, the chime of the pronoun, like a steel ring cast over what I know, what I name, what I claim, what I own, the why of the pronoun hones its bright efforts to keenness, because there is power in the categorical that prides itself and clumps itself and proliferates till there is no room in here for anything but power, till there is no air in here, but there would be no need for air if you could learn to breathe in whatever I breathe out.
B, noun 1.
A pit or a tunnel in the earth,
Because the earth
from
does not
which
gleam with the shine of the now. To dig into the earth,
ores or
it is
coal are
imperative to use
taken.
my fingers, or else to fashion more rigid, more perdurable fingers that cut, or delve, or shift, or shatter, because we are more evolved than animals, because to mine is not to burrow, because the earth is not for us to live in, because the earth is not precious in itself. The earth is that from which what is precious is taken. The earth is what is scraped away, or blasted away, or melted away. My steel-tipped fingers can display, or sell, or burn.
C, noun 2.
A device intended
My device.
to explode
device
when
be
stepped
defined.
upon,
By
or
intent.
touched,
So
or when
physically,
approached by a ship,
earth is
vehicle,
untouched.
or person.
A sly simulacrum.
A sly simulacrum of
innocence.
innocence, concealing an infinity
Infinity.
of hair trigger malice.
Cry
Of the noun
Sealed.
sealed in a
In a
concentric
concentric
sphere.
sphere. The sheath
sheath
is
Its lethal secret
secret.
in silence, unapproachable.
Unapproachable.
It sings
Its
its unspeakable harvest
in
in
this
a field
field
I have seeded with violence.
To dig away or otherwise remove
To dig
the
is to build dark
substratum
dwellings
or
of negative
foundation
space,
of,
to knit a
to
linked
sap,
network
to
of
ruin
nothing.
by
The seams of the seemingly solid,
slowly
unraveling itch of erosion, the scratch of collapse, each absence, the artifact of specific intention, in abscess, a crater, a honeycomb of dead husks. The home of the verb is founded on ruin. The crime of the verb hollows out prisons and graves. The rhyme of the verb tunnels from fissure to fraction, from factory to faction, from fault-like to fate. This foundation is equal parts atom and emptiness, this sphere to phase, fractured by rising and root what cement could salvage. This crumbling concrete should I pledge my allegiance to earthing order.
A black-chinned hummingbird lands on a metal wire and rests for 5 seconds. For 5 seconds, a pianist lowers his head and rests his hands on the keys. A man bathes where irrigation water forms a pool before it drains into the river. A mechanic untwists a plug, and engine oil drains into a bucket. For 5 seconds, I smell peppermint through an open window. Recall where a wild leaf grazed your skin. Here touch comes before sight. Holding you, I recall across a canal the sounds of men laying cuttlefish on ice at first light. Before first light, physical contact or hearts beating, patter of female rain on the roof. As the hummingbird whirs out of sight, the gears of a clock mesh at varying speeds. We hear a series of ostinato notes and are not tied to our body's weight on earth.
We were sitting, leaning back against the house on the stone patio or terrace, looking out over a steep drop at the mountains arrayed in a semicircle around us, all expectant angles like the music stands of an absent orchestra, summer colors, orangey golds and dim blues, and there must have been greens as well. I wasn't paying attention. I was watching the thing you had just said to me, still hanging in the air between us, its surfaces beating up with a shiny liquid like contempt that might have been seeping from the words themselves, or else condensing from the air, its inscrutable humidity, the droplets rounding themselves as they fell, etching a darker patch on the patio tiles, a deepening concavity, and above it, a roughness in the air, the molecules of concrete coalescing grain by grain into a corrugated pillar topped by a cloud, a tree form, not a sapling or a mountain tree, but a tree that would look at home in a farmyard or meadow, sheltered from winds, branches stretching out with all confidence toward the horizon, a shape that should have been an emblem of sufficiency, of calm, but whose surfaces were teeming with a turbulent rush of particles like the inner workings of a throat exposed, and whose dimensions were expanding with shocking speed, accumulating mass, accumulating coherence and righteousness, pulling more and more of the disintegrating terrace into its form, taller than us, then shadowing us, and doubtlessly underground, a root system of corresponding complexity and spread was funneling down nothingness from a hole in the upper air. And then it was time, and I stood up and went inside and shut the door, unsure what still anchored us to the mountainside.
Memory died August 3rd, 2015. The death was not sudden, but slowly over a decade. I wonder if, when people die, they hear a bell, or if they taste something sweet, or if they feel a knife cutting them in half, dragging through the flesh like sheet cake. The caretaker who witnessed my mother's death quit. She holds the memory and images, and now they are gone. For the rest of her life, the memories are hers. She said my mother couldn't breathe, then took her last breath 20 seconds later. The way I have imagined a kiss with many men I have never kissed. My memory of my mother's death can't be a memory, but is an imagination. Each time the wind blows, leaves unfurl a little differently.
Though neither you nor I saw flowering pistachio trees in the hanging gardens of Babylon, though neither you nor I saw the Tigris River stained with ink, though we never heard a pistachio shell dehiss, we have taken turns holding a panda as it munched on bamboo leaves, and I know that rustle now. I have awakened beside you and inhaled August sunlight in your hair. I've listened to the scroll and unscroll of your breath. Dolphins arc along the surface between white-capped waves. Here, years after we sifted yarrow and read from the book of changes, I mark the dissolving hues in the west as the sky brightens above overhanging willows. The panda fidgets as it pushes a stalk farther into its mouth. We step into a clearing with budding chanterelles. And though this space shrinks and is obscured in the traffic of a day, here is the anchor I drop into the depths of teal water. I gaze deeply at the panda's black patches around its eyes. How did it evolve from carnivore to eater of bamboo? So many transfigurations I will never fathom. The arc of our lives is a brightening then dimming, brightening, then dimming. A woman catches fireflies in an orchard with a swish of a net. I pick an open-mouthed pistachio from a bowl and crack it apart. A hint of Assyria spills into the alluvial fan of sunlight. I read spring in autumn in the scroll of your breath. Though neither you nor I saw the completion of the Great Wall, I wake to the unrepeatable contour of this breath.
Neither you nor I saw the flowering pistachio trees in the hanging gardens of Babylon. the Tigris River stained with ink. Though we never heard a pistachio shell dehisk, we have taken turns holding a panda as it munched on bamboo leaves. And I know that rustle now. Beside you, and inhaled August sunlight in your hair. I've listened to the scroll and unscroll of your breath. Dolphins arc along the surface between white-capped waves. Here, years after we sifted your own and read from the book of changes, I mark the dissolving hues in the west as the sky brightens. Above overhanging willows, the panda fidgets as it pushes a stalk further into its mouth. We step into a clearing with budding chanterelles, and though this space shrinks and is obscured in the traffic of a day, here is the anchor I drop into the depths of teal water. I gaze deeply at the panda's black patches around its eyes. How did it evolve from carnivore to eater of bamboo? So many transfigurations I will never fathom. The arc of our lives is a brightening, then dimming, brightening, then dimming. A woman catches catches fireflies in an orchard with the swish of a net. I pick an open-mouthed pistachio from a bowl and crack it apart. A hint of a Syria spills into the alluvial fan of sunlight. I read spring in autumn in the scroll of your breath. Completion of the great